welcome to this. Spinning. Hi, I'm ranting my way through life, and as you can tell from the title, it's gonna get a little deep in here. But not too deep. It'll be okay. We'll survive. I left the church because I want to sin. No, I'm just kidding. So for the first 16 years of my life, I was a true believing, devout Mormon child living here in Utah from an OG Mormon family. I was like, true believer, just totally for that. For at least the first 14 years of my life. Like, I have this thing where I'll be thinking about something in the back of my mind for a long, long time without even realizing it, and then all of a sudden, once I do realize it, I realize that I've been thinking about it for a very, very long time and not really putting conscious thought to it. So it's like, from an outside perspective, it seems like I make snap decisions, when in reality, like, I've been thinking about it for a long time, it's just, it never came to fruition. Does that make sense? Does that, I don't know. So, for the first however many years, I was a true believing Mormon, and a lot of people at, like, school and whatever thought that I was, like, this super religious Molly Mormon type. I wasn't the molliest of the Molly Mormons, which, by the way, a Molly Mormon is a Mormon that is, like, super, super into the doctrine and, like, meek and just the holiest of holies. First however many years of my life, I was that, and then started kind of questioning things, but still went to church because I liked the people that I went to church with. Like, I liked my ward. I liked my young women's group. I enjoyed my group. I loved the other girls in the group. I was in, like, a weirdly small ward for Utah because, well, when it came to the youth programs, like the primary and the young men's and young women's program, like the kids were scarce in my ward because my ward was in the bad area of Ogden, so like young couples would live there because they couldn't afford anything better, and then like older people would live there because again they couldn't afford anything better, or they lived there forever. There was a lot of people who had just lived there forever, and when they moved there, it wasn't the bad part of town, but then it became the bad part of town, but then they just never left. Anyway, most people, like most young couples, by the time they were having kids, they moved out of the ward and moved to a better location. So there wasn't a whole lot of youth, essentially. So, like, my young women's group, on a good week, we had like 10 girls. That was at the peak of our whole existence. The whole time that I was there, that was the peak. It was freaking 10 girls. Whereas most of the wards in the area had like 30 to 40 on like a bad week. You know what I mean? But our ward and then the couple other wards in our surrounding area were like weirdly small for Utah. So we were a very close-knit group of girls, and I had, like, really good friends, and I got to, like, mentor the younger ones when I was older, and I got to be in a leadership position, and I learned all these different things, and it was great. But that was basically the only thing that kept me going for the last couple years of being in that ward. And then I became 18. I graduated high school. When I graduated high school and I, like, talked my way into staying in my family ward and staying with the young women's group and just, like, being a kind of in a weird, awkward place where I'm not really a young woman and I'm not really, like, part of the leadership, but I kind of am, you know? It was kind of in that weird spot. But yeah, I had my last year of girls' camp. Sad. And then when I started college, I had to start going to the singles ward. And the singles ward is essentially, it's a meat market. That's all it is. It's a place that you go to get married, and you try to get out of there as quickly as possible. So you have your family wards, and you have your singles wards. And singles ward is, as the name might suggest, for all the people who are unmarried, who are looking for a carpool partner to the eternal the celestial kingdom, freaking eternal life and making planets and becoming gods. That's not a joke. They're just looking for that partner in life and in the afterlife and for all eternity, forever and ever and ever and ever. Or for the men, one of the 7 potential partners forever and ever. And yeah, 7 is not just a number that I pulled out of nowhere. That's real. Anyway, the purpose of Singles Ward is to get married as quickly as possible and get the hell out of there, because nobody wants to be in the Singles Ward forever. There's a whole movie about the Singles Ward that talks about all this crap. It's hilarious. Like, Snowball, can you not? Jeez. There's no reason to attack the curtain. Okay. That comedy movie is still my favorite of the Mormon comedy movies, which, by the way, there's a bunch of Mormon comedy movies, and they are good. Like, they're horrible, but they're great. You know what I mean? You know, they're in that weird spot where they're not good movies, but they're so bad they're funny. Snowball, stop it. Go on. Hi. So those Mormon comedy movies are like in that weird sweet spot where they're not great, they're not classics, they're not going to be on any award show. In fact, I think they were straight to DVD, all of them. I don't think any of them ever went to theaters. Singles Ward. I went to it, and the thing is, I think that if I had been put in the, like, college Singles Ward, I would have been more likely to keep going, but I was put in the ward with all the other losers who weren't moving out of Ogden, who were just staying home for college, who were just going to Weber State. Like, I was put in that ward. So it was a bunch of people that I had pretty much known my whole life, and I had absolutely no interest in. Plus, I was dating somebody who was not a Mormon. Gasp. And I actually went to his family's church a couple of times. I remember a conversation with my mom. My mom, like, straight up asked me if I still believed in the LDS Church, which the Mormons, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm just gonna say the church, because that's how people in Utah refer to it. Like, everybody, if you say the church, everybody knows what you're talking about. It's not in question. So, do you still believe in the church and the doctrine and all that stuff? And I was like, I don't know. Because by that point, you remember how, like, I have that thing where I think about something in the back of my head for a while before I even realize it, and then by the time I realize it, like, I suddenly realize, holy shit, I've been thinking about this forever, and just didn't acknowledge it. Yeah, I was past that point. Once I'm past that point, I have a really hard time not just straight up saying it, unless I'm gonna be lying for a specific purpose, which is manipulative, and I know. That's just how I am. Like, I'm a good liar, but I don't like to lie, if that makes sense. So I said, well, I don't know. And she said, well, I don't think that you should go to that church until you figure out what you want, until you're, like, more strengthened in your beliefs, blah, blah, blah. This has been one of the few moments in my life where I remember my mom actually being, like, weirdly religious. My mom usually wasn't. Like, my parents, every once in a while, would be, like, weirdly invested and, like, super into the church, and then the next moment, they just didn't give a shit. They went back and forth like that all the time. This was one of those moments where my mom was like, believe in the church. So, anyway, I didn't really, like, believe in his family's church. His family's church was really weird. They were, like, born-again Christians, and, like, nothing against any religion. I'm really, really, really cautious about organized religion, because I feel like people take advantage of other people by way of organized religion, but I'm not gonna judge anybody for what they believe in. It's just what they do with that belief. Just like anything else. I don't judge you for, like, what you believe in, how you feel, like, what goes through your head. All I care about is what you do with that. You know what I mean? And it's the same with religion and spirituality and all that crap. So there you go. A little piece of philosophy from me. So they were like born again Christian, and they had some weird beliefs and weird cherry picking, and it was just, no, I didn't like it. But I went a couple of times, and he went to my church a couple of times, and then I just kind of stopped going. I don't remember what exactly it was that, like, just made me completely stop going. I think it was actually because my singles ward, the people there wanted to give me a calling, which a calling is basically just a job within the church. Like, it's all volunteer, and the people higher up get, like, a stipend because it becomes essentially their whole lives to do the thing. So they have to live, which they arguably get a real high living stipend. But anyway, down at the lower levels, it's all voluntold based, basically. You get a calling, and you can either accept or reject the calling, but, like, if you reject it, then you're that guy who rejected their calling. So I got a calling in the singles ward. I can't remember what it was. It might have just been to be a home teacher, and I was gonna be partnered up with one of my, like, old friends, and she was, like, all excited about it. I don't know if she's still part of the church. I follow her on Instagram. If you're watching this, sup? You know who you are. But, yeah, and I just kind of stopped going because I really didn't want to do that, but I also didn't want to be that guy who says no, you know? Which, that's a whole other thing. The whole, like, not feeling like you can say no to things that the church teaches. So, there was that. And I stopped going and started falling into sin and debauchery, and ended up getting semi-kicked out of my house because I had sex with my boyfriend. Wasn't, like, really kicked out because I still stayed there for, like, a month, but my parents were basically like, we think that you should probably move out. So it was less of, like, pack up your things, you're out of here in half an hour kind of thing. Like, it wasn't that level of being kicked out, but it was definitely kicked out, you know? But, I mean, I was already thinking about moving out, so it wasn't, like, an extreme thing. You know what I mean? You know? So, at that point, once I was out of my parents' house, I started, like, researching other religions, and started all of these different whatever. So, that was and I ended up deciding that I didn't believe in any kind of religion. So I'm an atheist, but I'm also agnostic, which those two things are different things. Atheist means that you don't believe in a thing. Agnostic means that you don't know for certain whether the thing is real or not. So I'm an atheist, don't believe in any kind of higher power, but, like, I'm agnostic, which means I'm open to the idea, if you can prove it, you know? So, anyway, down to the why. So, why I left. Part of it was just not feeling that community connection, because that's kind of how the church keeps people around to a degree, is that whole, like, sense of community. And the thing is, wherever you go, whether it's in Utah or not, you have a local ward. You have a community built in. This, like, mini community within the larger community, wherever you are. Like, literally wherever you are. If there's a temple within 100 miles of where you're living, there's probably also a ward that you can attend, and there's a whole setup there, and it's the same setup everywhere. That is something the church gets right. Like, literally, it's all standardized. Everywhere is exactly the same. If you are traveling somewhere and you find a church, an LDS church to go to, you're gonna get the exact same lesson with the exact same, like, setup, all of it, as you would in your home ward. It would be taught differently because it's a different person teaching it, and it's like from a different perspective, especially if you go like super far away from home for your vacation. But it's gonna be the same lesson. So you come back and you won't have missed anything, basically. And like everywhere has young women's, and everywhere has primary, and everywhere has the elders quorum and a bishop and a fucking librarian. Like all of these places have the exact same setup everywhere. So no matter where you go, it's the same. And it's this community and everybody's super welcoming, blah, blah, blah. So that is something that the church has going for it. So once I left my family ward, once I left that community and went to the singles ward, I did give it a chance. I went to it a couple of times. Didn't feel that sense of community because there were quite a few people in that ward that I really did not want to be around at all. And I mean, in my family ward, there wasn't really anybody like that. There were people that I didn't like quite as much as other people, you know? But it wasn't as bad as when I went to singles ward. So it was kind of that, it was kind of the people. But the main thing, and I didn't even really consciously realize it when I was kind of questioning things. Again, it was one of those things that was like formulating in the back of my head and didn't really know, was just doctrinal, whatever, stuff. The teachings of the church. Like, I liked the people, I liked different aspects of it, but the doctrine, no. There's, like, a lot of homophobic shit, and there's a lot of, like, the fact that a lot of the really messed up things that the church has done in the past only stopped because the government was basically like, either stop this or you're gonna lose your tax cuts. So, or as the case may be with polygamy, the only reason polygamy stopped was because the Mormons wanted Utah to become a state, and the United States government was like, you can't be polygamous and be part of the United States. And then all of a sudden is like, oh, we're gonna be done with polygamy now, conveniently. And the same thing happened in, like, the 70s when the church was getting flack for not allowing black men to have the priesthood. Ooh. The government was basically like, you're gonna lose your tax benefits. You're gonna lose your tax cuts if you don't stop doing that racist shit. And then all of a sudden God was like, oh, yeah, black people are cool now. Even though there were talks and teachings and stuff like that that were hella racist before then, and talking about how black people would never, ever, 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 ever have the priesthood. Ever, 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 ever. So that's awkward. So I started kind of noticing inconsistencies and hypocrisies like that. And just the fact that, you know, and after I left the church, I realized that I was bisexual, and I think that I kind of knew it already. Like, I knew I was attracted to women already, and that was part of why I was having such a disconnect with the church, was because everywhere I turned, like, everything that I did that didn't seem that bad to me was evil and sinful. So not only, like, being bisexual, but, like, other stuff I don't really want to talk about on the internet. But all these different things, and I had friends who were gay and bisexual, whatever. And the church kept telling me that they were bad and gonna go to the equivalent of Mormon hell, which is, never mind. There's too much to explain there. I'm gonna put some resources down in the description if you are questioning any kind of religion. I don't know. I don't want to tell you what to believe, but if you're questioning things, then explore that. And the thing is, any belief worth having is gonna stand up to questioning. That's just that. So, yeah. Thanks for watching. Alrighty, y'all, we're in the end screen now, so thanks for watching this. If you liked it, hit that like button down yonder way. Hit that subscribe, either down there or right over there, conveniently. Click right there for a video that YouTube thinks that you will like that I have made. I don't know what it is. And I'll see you later, friends. Bye!